Hello, this is James Harden. I presented earlier today, but you're going to hear a lot of ums because for some reason, presenting on my computer makes me much more anxious. This is my presentation on modern board games using scrape data from BoardGameGeek.com. I did not scrape the data, I got a data set from Kaggle. My motivations for this is I'm a part-time illustrator and graphic designer, and I really enjoy board games, and I can talk about that for hours. So I thought I would have a presentation on some board games and design trends and stuff like that, and average ratings based on different criteria. Um, I've also worked on board games in the past. I've designed board games. I've illustrated for board games. So I wanted to explore this. The data set is 2,000 data points across 57 variables. The 2,000 data points are the top 2,000 games on BoardGameGeek.com as of 2025. The ranking is determined by some combination of the rating and the number of ratings and the average popularity of a game. The 57 variables include the rank, the name, the vague categories that a game falls in, the mechanics it uses, the minimum number of players, maximum number of players, the number of ratings in each of the star categories, the publishers in a semicolon separated list, the designers in a semicolon separated list, the illustrators in a semicolon separated list. There's pretty much everything you would want to know about a given game except for its ranking through time. So there is no way to see how a game has been received over time, over its life cycle. Here is the variation within release year. As you can see, most of these games are from between 2010 and 2025. This is because, of course, more recent games are going to be more popular in the current moment, but the ranking is attempting to try and not be time sensitive. There is a separate ranking on the website for what is popular right now, what is trending. As you can see, there are games going all the way back to the 1950s, and this graph would extend way to the left, as there are games that were made in 1822, 1650, and many of them go all the way back, or two of them specifically, go all the way back to year zero, which is used as an NA value for games that we cannot know the time that they were released because they're more cultural icons than games themselves, and I believe that the two games that fit that category are Go and Eat Poop You Cat. But that is a game I will not go into detail right now because I only have 10 minutes. This is the distribution of the average ratings. So as you can see, they're on average between 7 and 8. This is because any that would be below that are probably not going to be in the top 2,000 games on the website. However, you can see that there are some lower rated games, so games that are rated below 7, but are still popular enough to get into the top 2,000. So this is the complexity scores across the data set. As you can see, most games are a 2 or a 3. Complexity is the weight of a game, or the number of mechanics, generally how hard it is to learn, how much there is to learn, as in when you're playing the game, how much bite the game is, how much thinking you have to do when you're playing the game. It's kind of a catch-all for that. They're user ratings, so kind of like the normal ratings, but for the complexity of a game and not just how much they were enjoyed. I'll be looking at complexity as it relates to other variables in the data set. So here you can see complexity correlated with Amazon price. So as a game gets more complex, it usually needs more components to facilitate that complexity. And so here you see higher complexity games usually cost more on Amazon. And you can see this is an exponential because the graph is scaled logarithmically. There are games in this data set that cost upwards of $1,000 on Amazon, which is probably because they're out of print, but regardless, they there are a lot here. Um, there are also some vertical striations in this data set, as you can see. This is due to rounding, so a game is more likely to be $50 than it is 55 or 54 or 51, for example. Here, I wanted to look at the average rating as complexity increases, so more complex games are more likely to be rated higher. But as you can see on the right side of this graph, there aren't a lot of really complex games in this data set. Now, that is not because there are not a lot of really complex games out there. It's because really complex games might be rated higher, but they are also usually less popular because they cost more, they have uh, they have a higher entry fee, like you have to spend a lot of time to learn a really complex game. So for a 3 hour game, you might be spending an hour learning the rules. Granted, that is just for the first play, but you're still probably not going to understand the game after your first play. You might have to play multiple times to fully get it. Um, Now, contrary to this, and going back to what I said earlier, the popularity of the game tends to go down as you increase the complexity. So here you can see games as a game's complexity goes up, the number of owned copies reported on the website goes down. The number of ratings on the website goes down, so there's less people rating the game, so less people who are more likely to have played the game, and the less number of total reported plays there are. So the website allows you to report a play. So whenever you play a game, it counts it. And that's just kind of a push and pull of what complexity can do to a game as far as it's received publicly. So publishers, release rates, and rating. Publishers are really important to games, just as important as designers and illustrators. Well, maybe not. That's debatable. But I wanted to look at some publishers because I design and illustrate games, but I definitely don't publish games. So I wanted to look into that. Here you can see I have the top rated publishers that have published at least 5 games. So there are higher rated publishers on average, and this is the average rating of all of their games. So there are a lot of publishers that have published one game that have been rated higher than this 8.339. However, at 5, you start seeing higher numbers, and Chip Theory Games is very common. Restoration Games, Dire Wolf Games, these are all very common names as far as board games go. Here, I wanted to look at the top publishers, not by popularity, but by just the sheer number of games that they release each year. So here, the top 5 present publishers in the database, I have graphed their releases per year over time in a graph like this, and I noticed that it kind of followed the same shape as that first graph I showed you at the beginning, right here. So I wanted to see if I could remove that correlation, and so I did a regression with a natural spline and wanted to look at the residuals, and you see that there is some information to be found here. So around here, you can see that these two kind of dip, but you really see a really strong dip here with the top 10 publishers around 2023. I would let people ask questions now, but this is a recording, so you can't. But trust me, I would talk to you forever about board games if I could. You should ask. I love board games. Okay, bye. I hope you have a great day.